Alright, so really quickly before we start, I ran a poll on Instagram and Facebook to see if you would rather me have some music in my videos, or if you prefer the more natural sounds in my kitchen. The results were 65% of you voted in favor of music, and seriously, who am I to disappoint? So I think I found some music that represents me as a person, and without further ado, let's start from the beginning, shall we? Hey, this is kinda nice. Let me know down in the comments if you're liking the new music. Alright, so for this episode, I'm going to be continuing with some more summer barbecue recipes. Only this time I was challenged by Dave from the Instagram account YardcoreBBQ to come up with a recipe using this month's secret ingredient, miso. It's all part of BBQ Island's Can You Cue It monthly contest, and well, challenge accepted, guys. I'll leave links down in the description for both of their accounts, and I'd highly recommend you check them out. So when it comes to barbecue, the age-old argument is baby back ribs or side ribs, which is best? Well, I'm officially taking a stand and saying, well, neither. Now before you call me a war criminal and cry for my arrest, just hear me out for a moment. Yes, baby back and side ribs make killer barbecue, but pound for pound, the best cut of pork rib money can get you is spare ribs. It's true. So today I'm going to show you how to turn that neglected and misunderstood cut into something that'll change your mind forever. Spicy Miso Spareribs. Thanks again to Dave at YardcoreBBQ for nominating me for this challenge. As always, exact measurements will be in the description, and if you like to learn modern Korean and Asian dishes, consider subscribing. I release episodes weekly. And with all that being said, let's make some spare ribs. So spare ribs are cut from the belly of the pig, and while they have a greater bone to muscle ratio, they have more fat, which makes them juicier, more tender, and gives them a lot more flavor. Because we're going to be doing these Korean barbecue style, the key is going to be in the marinade. But before we get to that, we need to clean these up a little bit. Like all ribs, there is a layer of silver skin underneath. You can have your butcher remove this for you, but if you're watching my channel, you're probably the kind of person who likes to do things yourself, and for that, I salute you. Besides, it's stupidly easy to remove and requires only a knife and some paper towel. Take the tip of your knife and just make a small cut to make the initial separation. The silver skin is practically paper thin, so as long as you stay close to the top, you're fine. Once you have a little piece of the silver skin separated, grab yourself a piece of paper towel. Because it's really slippery and ultra thin, paper towel will make this process so much easier because it gives you a nice firm grip. Then simply grab hold of the flap of silver skin and pull back off the ribs. It should fairly easily come off in one piece. Now, because we're using spare ribs mostly for their fat content, we're not going to be trimming any off, so all that's left to do is to cut them to size. The bones in spare ribs are pretty big, so it's easy to see where to make the cuts. When you get to the flatter end, the bones become cartilage and are a bit harder to see, but they're also easy enough to cut through, so it won't matter if you get it perfect. Just try to be consistent in size. Once the ribs are cleaned and cut, we can go ahead and move on to the star of the show, the marinade. For this, we'll need 3 large scallions and a pear roughly chopped. You can substitute an Asian pear or an apple for this as well. Add both of these to a blender, as well as 1/4 cup of Korean soju or vodka, half a cup of soy sauce, half a cup of pineapple juice, 2 tablespoons of gochujang, 2 tablespoons of gochugaru. You can adjust these last 2 depending on if you want it really hot or just have a little heat, and 2 tablespoons of rice syrup. Now, because this is part of a miso barbecue challenge, the last thing we'll add is 1.5 tablespoons of miso, but I figured since this is kind of a special occasion, I'd bust out my homemade miso. I made this batch about a year ago, and it hasn't quite hit that ideal level of funk just yet. That'll occur around the 3-year mark. Its flavor is nonetheless distinctly miso. If you'd like me to do a video where I show you how to make this miso, leave a comment down below. Blend everything until it's nice and smooth. Then add it to the spare ribs. Give it all a thorough mix and make sure every rib is coated in the marinade. Like the kalbi beef short ribs I did in my last video, these need a minimum of 12 hours to sit and soak up all that goodness. But honestly, these will be ideal around 24 to 48 hours. That'll give the acids in the marinade enough time to break down a lot of the connective tissue, which will make them buttery tender. Probably the most important thing you need when it comes to Korean food is time, but it's always worth it. Cover your container tightly with plastic wrap and place it in the fridge. I let these ones sit for 36 hours, and you can see how they've been stained red from the Gochugaru and Gochujang. When taking them out of the marinade, shake off any excessive amount, but make sure they're still coated. Just like in the kalbi video, which you can check out here, this will act as a barbecue sauce and will help to color and char them. That's one thing I really like about Korean barbecue. The marinades help to flavor and tenderize, but also act as a sauce for the cooking process. I'm using a charcoal grill for these because that's what I have, but they can be done on any type of grill. If you don't have one, preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, sear them in an oven-safe pan or Dutch oven until browned on all sides, then bake for about 7 to 8 minutes. I have my grill preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've thrown some applewood chips on top to give them a slight smokiness. Because spare ribs don't have a ton of meat on them, plus they're already tender from the marinade, these won't take long at all. I also have the thicker pieces closest to the heat, as they'll take longer to cook than the smaller ones. Cover and let them cook for about 6 minutes. By now, they should have a good amount of color on them and should just about be cooked all the way through. I'll usually throw a small handful of wood chips on top of the coals to get some flames going so I can char them, which to me personally is the best part of barbecue. I would take a charred piece of barbecued fat over the nicest cut of steak any day. You definitely don't want these, or any barbecue for that matter, to burn, but at the same time, don't be afraid of some color. Color always equals flavor. Once you've gotten a nice amount of char on all sides, you're done. Let them rest for at least 5 minutes before serving them. Top them off with some sliced scallion and toasted sesame seeds. And that's it. Spicy Miso Spareribs. Hopefully this changes how you think about this often overlooked cut. Thanks for watching. If you liked this episode and are interested in learning more about modern Korean and Asian-inspired dishes, consider subscribing. I release episodes weekly. And thanks again to YardcoreBBQ and BBQ Island Incorporated for putting on this fun competition. If you have any suggestions or requests, leave them in the comments. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram for more content.